Yeah, I mean, one of the things that has made Ripple, I think, both successful and arguably controversial is I don't think about it so much as how do we turn the barge around as much as how do we help the barge be more successful. Ripple said, and maybe pejoratively describing the banks and governments as barges, using your thing. So I don't mean it in a mean way, but the best way to have the biggest impact is to engage the system, to get the barge to be far more efficient in terms of speed, in terms of cost, in terms of accuracy. And then you can have a bigger impact in enabling the internet of value and frankly impacting the whole economy.
We have the technology to allow every financial institution on the planet to settle with every other financial institution in a compatible jurisdiction in any asset in seconds for less than a penny. Just think about this. Anyone who's made a payment knows that we're nowhere near that today. But imagine every financial institution settling with every other financial institution in seconds for less than a penny, any asset. That's fundamentally transformative. We have the technology to do it. Now we just need to figure out how to drive the adoption.
I thought that he was going to end up going to jail. And you know what? I didn't follow the case super closely. It's clear laws were broken. I don't know what in his mind or his intent. I knew him. I know him a little bit. I mean, there's definitely things that happened there that you're like, I mean, it's just hard for me to calculate how those things happened. I mean, I think about how Ripple is run, and as a professional organization, like it could never happen. From our compliance team, from our chief legal officer, the whole team, like it could never happen. So I don't know. There's a lot of lack of controls there, and I think it's certainly sad and bad for crypto. But again, I think in the long journey that has been crypto, it's another speed bump that has built resilience, and I think hopefully made the industry smarter.
Let's talk about XRP, which facilitates instant payments between parties like banks. I mean, what kind of traction are you seeing?
Well, I'm incredibly pleased to see how much traction people are seeing with let's solve a real problem with digital assets. Historically, I think there's been a lot of hype in the crypto ecosystem, a lot of experiments, and we're able to look at what we're doing with XRP and really accelerate the adoption and help banks take advantage of what is possible through these digital assets.
Of course, there is an entrenched player already in SWIFT. I mean, how much are you denting the business of SWIFT?
Well, so we look at SWIFT as a company that has certainly defined how cross-border payments have been enabled. That's also existed for a couple decades, really almost 4 decades, for how that system works. We feel like there's an opportunity to bring the system into the modern world or into the internet world, where today a SWIFT transaction can take days. You don't know for sure if it's arrived. It's almost like a postcard. The only way you know is your friend says, hey, I received that. And I think in a world of the internet where people expect I can order an Uber and it shows up right away, a Gojek, what have you, these are the expectations people have with regard to how financial systems should work in the modern era.
It's just the worst system to use. And the thing is, it charges banks and fund managers and corporates and anyone else that's got a lot of money huge transaction fees. But it's not just that. It's basically the process of settlement. It cannot do instant settlement. And, a lot of people don't seem to understand that Ripple can actually do instant settlement in volume.
Wow.
And straight away with any currency, not just currency, they could do it with any sort of, asset.
SWIFT is the preeminent messaging system for the financial industry, which covers, say, payments, FX, trade, in terms of securities, etc., NOSTA reconciliations, etc. What we're looking with the crypto, though, is where SWIFT would have a store and forward system for most of its payment transactions, where you need service level agreements that in a certain time I will do something, but payment turns up at a certain time during the day. Here we're looking at the new network styles, which allow instant, real-time movement of the funds and visibility of those funds as well. So we would not have a situation where banks need to come back to you and say, have my funds arrived? It's 3 days later. I need to find out or find query messages moving around the network. There's nothing like that. I don't believe Ripple is going to replace SWIFT. Ripple is one of the complementary networks, which is going to allow those institutions who need real time to make use of that. And I think we're also seeing that SWIFT are changing their network capability so that real-time will be a possibility as well. But we may also see Ripple XRP moving across the SWIFT network as a currency when we're perhaps using something like FX.
To some degree, Citibank and HSBC, really the top two, JPM, those are the top three liquidity banks. And when you're sending SWIFT messages, you're sending messages to banks to release liquidity and making sure the debits and credits match. So to some degree, really boil it down, Ripple's competing with the liquidity of Citi and the messaging of SWIFT, but in one, because we're both messaging and liquidity.
Brad, tell me here then, where does this go? I mean, let's have a look at just effectively what we have. We've got so many cryptocurrencies out there. You're one of the front runners, but the thing is, are there too many of you guys?
Actually, I agree with you. I think there are too many. There are around 3,000 different digital assets that trade on a daily basis now. I think, anytime there's a new market, there's a lot of people that run into that market and try to show that they can solve a problem, they can deliver a customer need. I have said publicly before that I think 99% of all crypto probably goes to zero. But there is that 1% where I think that is focused on solving a real problem for real customers and is able to do that at scale. And that's going to be game changing. And I think that's going to continue to grow significantly in the decades ahead.
I mean, that's probably one of the reasons why there is so much instability in terms of the price here. But, you want to be you are a currency, you want to be a unit of transfer here. But the problem is, if you transferred some money to somebody else, that may be worth much less by the time they want to actually cash it in, if they do cash it in. So, how do you actually produce some stability in all this?
It turns out this is a false narrative. It turns out when you enable a SWIFT transaction, volatility is a calculation of both time and volatility. So a SWIFT transaction can take 2 to 3 days, where an XRP transaction takes a few seconds. And it turns out the volatility of enabling a SWIFT transaction is much higher than enabling an XRP transaction because of the time. We actually just did a post on the Ripple website explaining the math behind this, but it turns out that the volatility risk is lower with an XRP transaction.
Investors are pretty concerned about the sell-off we're seeing in Ripple, and they say that it is bigger than expected. Is there reason to be worried about it?
Well, I think probably the sell-off in XRP versus the sell-off in Ripple is a private company. We have our shareholders. It's you can't trade Ripple shares, so to speak. XRP, look, we pay attention over the long haul. I tell the employees I don't think about it on a 3 days or 3 weeks or 3 months. Taking advantage of what digital assets can do to make transactions more efficient, I think, is a journey we'll be on for a decade or two. I describe it as a marathon, and we're on kind of mile 2. So I don't think about the price of XRP in the short term. I think if we can enable XRP to be the most efficient, measured by speed of a transaction, the cost of a transaction.
Once upon a time, the world of interbank payments was dominated by SWIFT, the global messaging network that connects banks and financial institutions. However, a new technology emerged, Ripple, and slowly but surely, it began to disrupt the industry. Ripple's blockchain-based platform allowed for near-instant and low-cost cross-border payments without the need for intermediaries. It also provided enhanced security and transparency, making it an attractive option for banks looking to improve their payment systems. As more and more banks began to adopt Ripple, its popularity grew, and it soon replaced SWIFT as the predominant interbank payment network. The benefits of Ripple's platform were simply too great to ignore. As Ripple became more widely adopted, the use of its digital asset XRP in the company's on-demand liquidity, ODL product, began to increase. ODL enables banks and financial institutions to use XRP as a bridge currency to facilitate cross-border payments, reducing the cost and time involved in such transactions. With banks using XRP and ODL, demand for the cryptocurrency increased, driving up its price. Institutions began buying XRP in large quantities to ensure they had enough liquidity to facilitate their payments. Investors also took notice, recognizing the potential of Ripple's technology to revolutionize the financial industry. They began buying up XRP in large volumes, causing its price to skyrocket even further. As Ripple continued to gain traction, it became clear that the financial industry would never be the same. The traditional methods of cross-border payments were being replaced by a faster, more efficient, and more secure system. In the end, Ripple's success led to a surge in the price of XRP, making it one of the most valuable cryptocurrencies on the market. The world of finance had been forever changed, thanks to the innovation of Ripple and the adoption of XRP in its ODL product.